here from the Modish Maker. I'm here today to show you how to get started in Adobe Illustrator. So maybe you've never even opened the program before if you just got Adobe Illustrator, or maybe you opened it and it was a little scary because I know when you first open the program and you don't know anything about it, it can be a little overwhelming because there's a lot of stuff going on. So no worries, I'm gonna be with you here right from the beginning. We're starting from scratch here. So on the left, you're gonna see a button that says create new. So I literally just opened Illustrator and this is the window that pops up. So this is the main screen. This is what yours should look like, or it looks similar to it right now. So let's click on create new because we're going to create a new document. Okay, so up here you'll see a few different options, and this is really the main thing here is probably going to be between web and print, unless you're doing some sort of film or illustrative work, but these are the only two I ever work in, and mainly it's web now, because mainly now I'm either creating SVGs to sell in my shop or for my Cricut, so I hardly ever use print anymore. And honestly, the only difference between the two are with web. If you click on advanced options here, you can see the color modes in RGB, which stands for red, green, and blue. And this is the color mode that is always going to be for anything digital, anything on the computer, web design, everything is in RGB color mode. That's just how computer screens work. So if you click here on print, you'll see the color mode changed to CMYK. So this stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And it probably sounds familiar if you have just a basic printer at home, because most inkjet printers take these colors for ink. So if you're making a design that you're eventually going to print, you might want to work in CMYK color mode. You can always change it while you're working. So for now, I'm going to start in web RGB. And I always like to change my raster effects to 300. This is basically the highest quality you can get. So up here, you'll see a few different numbers. This is going to be the size of your artboard, which I'll explain to you in a second here. You'll see that they're measured in pixels right now. If you're familiar with pixels, you can keep it the same, feel free, but I'm going to change mine to inches because that's what I'm just most comfortable with. There's also, a few different ones here, points, millimeters, centimeters, but I'm going to click on inches. And I'm going to change the size of my artboard for now to 8x10. Orientation, it's vertical right now. You can also change it to landscape if you prefer. You see, this would change it to 10x8. But I'm going to stay in portrait mode. I'm going to keep it at one artboard. I'm not even going to worry about bleed right now. And I'm just gonna keep it like that and click on create. So this is what you're gonna see when you click on create. This white rectangle here is called your artboard. So you can think of your artboard as just your digital canvas for your designs. So anything you create needs to stay within your artboard. And there is a little icon you'll see on the left here. This is called your Artboard tool. If you click on it, you can see that it kind of gets outlined with some blue dashes. And if you hover over it and click, you can actually click and drag and change the size of your artboard. And you can see over here in my transform properties that the size has changed. So now it's 9.06 by 10. And I'm just gonna change it here. Just click and highlight. I'm gonna change it back to 8 by 10. So this is what your workspace should look like if you just started Illustrator. If you just opened it and you don't have any custom settings saved. If you click up here in your menu under Window, you'll see a Workspace section. And right now, your workspace is in Essentials. And it's fine if you want to work in this space, but I prefer the automation. If I click on that, you can see a whole bunch of things just happened. So I got some more buttons going on here, and I just like it because I like to use a lot of these things. But don't let it scare you, because I'm going to show you the things you need to know. I'm just going to click cancel here real quick so you can see. Okay. So I'm actually going to go in my window and click on Artboards. So now you can see down here, my Artboard section popped up. I have my Artboard section and my Layers section. And the cool thing about working in Illustrator is if you click on the tabs, you can move these wherever you want. So I actually like to keep my Artboards and my layers up on the top here. So you can see that I have one artboard going on. You can add more artboards if you want. There's a little icon down here, a little square. And if you click on it, you'll see a new artboard pops up. So you can actually be designing in 2 different artboards at the same time. But I'm going to undo that because I'm only going to be working in one today with you guys. So your layers section here is just going to show you everything that you have in your document, like any text you make, any shapes you make, any objects you make, designs. They're all going to show up here as we go, and you'll see that in a minute here. I just want to give you a little overview real quick before I get into the 5 tools that you'll need to know to get started. So one more thing I want to show you is up here you will see a little white square, and if you click on the arrow next to it, a whole bunch of colors will pop up. This is your fill area. So a fill is if you make a shape or a design in Illustrator, you can change the fill color to whatever you want. So that's going to fill up your design with this color. Right now it's on white, and your stroke color is right next to it, and it's in black here. And your stroke is the outline of the shape or whatever you're going to make. So I'll probably get into that a little bit later when I show you about shapes. And then right next to it is your stroke width. So that's how skinny or thick your stroke or your outline is going to be. So the first tool that I want to show you how to use is going to be your type tool. So if you like making just only text designs or adding text to a design, you're really going to need this. So your type tool is pretty easy to spot. It's a big T on the left here, and if you hover over it, it says type tool, T. So the little T in parentheses is if you if you press on your keyboard, T, I just did that, it's going to select your type tool for you. So you can either press T on your keyboard or click on the type tool, and you will see this little text box as your cursor instead of a regular cursor. So I'm gonna click here. And once I click, you'll see it put in some text for me, some filler text, and it's highlighted. I'm just, so feel free to just write whatever you want right now. I'm just gonna type hello. And once you type something, you'll see it show up here. So, okay, it's really tiny. So there's two ways you can change the size. Okay, so once you get your text tool out, you will see some new stuff pop up here on top. This right here is the font that's being used. It's Mirrored Pro, and you can scroll down and kind of pick whatever font you want to use right now. I'm just gonna go with Cooper Black today. Oh, so you see, I went and changed the font, but it didn't actually change anything here. And that's because I didn't have the text highlighted. So you can either click and drag to highlight your text. You can click and press Command A, and that will also highlight your text. And then I'm gonna go back here and select my Cooper Black. The next box here is the font style, and it's regular. If some fonts you'll see bold, italic, medium, thin, but this Cooper Black font only has one right now. And then the next box next to it is going to be your font size. So it's 12 points right now. And see, as I click on this arrow, this drop down box, I can change it to any size I want. So I'm gonna just change it to 60 points right now. And that's basically how you use the text tool. There's one more way to change the size, which is what I normally use. And it's actually the next tool I was gonna show you guys. So on the left here, if you go to the very top button and hover over it, you'll see it says Selection Tool. And this is how you're going to select any object that it's on your artboard. So I only have text right now, but if I click on it, it selects all of the text for me. If I click off of it, it deselects the text. So I'm gonna click on the text, and you'll see this blue rectangular box that appears around your text. So if you hover your cursor over one of these corners, see these tiny blue squares that are kind of at each corner of your text box? If you hover over them, you'll see some arrows that pop up, and that's to change the size or to transform your text. So if you click while those arrows are up and drag, you can change the size or, the width or the height of your text. And if you want to size your text proportionally, all you have to do is press Shift. I'm pressing Shift right now. And while you drag, it'll perfectly resize your text for you. And then just let go. And there's your text. There's your hello. Okay. So you can always, if you're not working on something, this is what I do a lot. If you're not currently working on the hello, sometimes I just drag it off the artboard and then start working on something new. So when you export your design in the end, which I'll show you, let's say we're going to export this as a JPEG. Only whatever is within your artboard here is going to get exported. So you don't have to worry about anything that's off of your artboard. I always have lots of stuff going on outside of my artboards. So now that we went over the type tool, the selection tool, I'm going to show you a third tool, which is this rectangle right here, and it's actually called the rectangle tool. But I kind of call it the shape tool because, well, let's click on this right now, click and hold, and you'll actually see a whole bunch of shapes pop up here. So these are pre-made shapes that Illustrator has, and they're actually super helpful if you're just starting out with designing. So I have the rectangle selected right now. And if you click in your artboard, click and drag, this blue rectangle is what you see. What you see is what you're gonna get. So if you make it look like this, when I let go, that's what it's gonna look like. And it's black because remember when I was talking about fill in the beginning, which maybe didn't make sense then, but now you can see that the fill, or the inside of my rectangle, is black, and I can change that to any color. So here it is with blue. And that stroke I was talking to you about, I'm going to show that to you. I'm going to pick a darker blue for the outside of my rectangle. So now you can see that my light blue rectangle is outlined with dark blue. And if I want to make that outline thicker, I can go ahead and change my stroke here to whatever. I just put it up to 3, and now you can see it got a little thicker. So again, if you wanted to make a perfect square instead of a rectangle, when you click and drag to make your shape, just press Shift again, and it will make you a perfect square. One more way to make a square here, or rectangle, is if all you do is click when your rectangle tool is selected over here, a pop-up box will come up, and you can actually just pick whatever size you want your rectangle to be. So if I selected 2x4, click OK, a 2" by 4" rectangle shows up, because remember, I'm working in inches here. So you can also make circles this way. If you come over to your rectangle tool, this is why I call it the shape tool instead, because it can make rectangles, ellipses, polygons, and stars. So if you wanted to make a circle or an oval, again, click and drag. I have Shift selected here, so it's making me a perfect circle. If I clicked and dragged and didn't press Shift, I could make it however wide or skinny I wanted. And then again, if you just simply click, that sizing box will pop up, and you can make this whatever size you want. Okay. I'll show you one more shape here, just because I love the star tool. I'm going to click on the star tool here on the left. Again, to get to that, you just click on that rectangle tool and hold, and you'll see this box come up with the selections you can make. So I have this star tool selected, and if I click, drag, and Shift, I can make a perfect star. Pretty cool. If I clicked and dragged without Shift, I could kind of change the direction of the star. And there you go, there's your shape tools. So I'm going to move all this off here. You can also just click and drag it all and press delete. That works too if you are done with it. You don't want to see it anymore, ever again. Okay, so the fourth tool I'm going to show you here is the pen tool. And when I was first starting in Illustrator, this was the most complicated tool for me to learn how to use. So this tool allows you to basically draw and to create vector-based drawings. So the pen tool creates paths. And if you've read my other articles, you would know that paths basically make up all of vectors. So any drawings that you make in Illustrator, they're going to be made with paths, and that's what makes them capable of being vectors. So once I click on this pen tool here, it's the third icon from the bottom, and it looks like a little pen tip. Okay, to show you this, I'm gonna go ahead and not have a fill right now, because if you have a fill while you're using your pen tool, it can kind of make it look a little weird. So if you don't want any fill at all, which is what I want right now, click on the little white box here that has a red red line going through it. And there we go. Now I only have a stroke. So if you just click and drag to make your first point, you will see that when you move your cursor again, this little line comes up. And this is your path. So this is basically what your drawing is starting to look like. So if I were to click again right here and drag, I could make a curve. And let's say I clicked again over here and dragged, I make another curve. So the reason I said that the fill tool makes it look kind of weird is I'm going to go ahead and put a fill on this just to show you. It starts filling in your drawing as you're going, and I mean, if you feel free to use that, but it kind of confuses me while I'm drawing in here, so I always like to add the fill afterwards. But feel free to play around with the pen tool and kind of practice. Honestly, yes, practice makes perfect. I'm going to say that here because I had to practice a lot with the pen tool to start creating vector-based drawings with the pen tool here. So that's tool number 4, and I'm going to compare it here with the last tool I'm going to show you, which is the brush tool. So the brush tool looks like a little paintbrush over here. Oh, it's actually called the paintbrush tool. So if you click on that, you'll see that your cursor changes to a little paintbrush icon. And let's say I wanted to make that same squiggle with the brush tool. I'm just going to click and drag that whole squiggle. So the brush tool is not made up of points like this pen tool is. See how this pen tool, we made a few points with it because whenever we stopped, clicked to drag, stopped, click to drag, that's all making different points on your drawing. So with the brush tool, if I wanted to make a squiggle, I would literally just click and freehand that squiggle with my cursor, and it just made that squiggle for me. And it actually adds all of the points in for you. So if you're just starting out, it might be easier for you to draw with the paintbrush tool for now. Let's say I wanted to draw a quick heart. All I would do is click and drag, and it makes a decent heart. But if you go to your selection tool and click, actually I'm going to show you a bonus tool here real quick. Tool number 6, which is the direct selection tool. It's right under the selection tool, and with the direct selection tool, you can actually see all of the points that are in your drawing, and you can actually move them. So let's say, see how this corner looks kind of weird? If I click on this anchor point, I can move it up to kind of change my heart up. You can delete points with the direct selection tool. See, I really think the problem with this is there's too many points here. So if you go up to your anchors, remove selected anchor points. It just removed that for me. And that looks better. So I'll get more in depth in my other videos about this, but I just wanted to show you the bare basics of starting in Illustrator, because I know that it can look really confusing and overwhelming at first if you've never used it before. So I'm gonna move my hello back up here. I'm gonna delete. So if you make sure you have your selection tool selected, or press V on your keyboard, click and drag over and press delete. That just deletes your squiggles. I'm going to click on my heart, and I'm going to change my fill to red. And I'm going to have no stroke. Okay. So let's say you made your first design and you want to export it, or, well, first let's just save it first of all. So in order to save it, go up to File here, click Save, or you can press Command S on your keyboard. And I'm just going to name this Heart Hello. And just click wherever you want to save it. And your format will automatically be AI, Adobe Illustrator file. Save that. I keep all these settings. Click OK. And now this is saved in your files on your computer, and you can always open it back up and edit it and add things to it and delete it, and it's always going to be there for you to change or whatever you want. But let's say I wanted to save this as an SVG instead. What I do is when the format pops up, I just scroll down here to SVG. So you can save it as EPS, PDF, and SVG. Those are the main ones I use. But there you go. Click Save there. I keep all of these settings. Okay, so let's say I wanted to save this design and upload it onto my website or share it online somewhere. Most websites aren't going to take SVGs or AI files, so I need to save it for web. So in order to save it as an SVG or a JPEG, you're actually going to go down here to Export and go to Export As. And now you can save it as a PNG, a JPEG, DXF, TIFF, anything you want. So I'm gonna save it as a JPEG since I'm saving it for web. So one more thing when exporting is, if you only want to save what is on your artboard. Let's say I had a bunch of stuff going on over here and I only wanted to save this hello heart design. Make sure you click here on Use Artboards, and that's going to make sure that when you export, only what's within your artboard here is going to be saved. So I'm just going to click on Export. you'll see another screen pop up here. And I always like the highest quality graphics, so on quality here, it's set on 5 right now. I'm gonna move that up to 10 maximum. And the only other thing I usually change is the resolution. Right now it's set to screen 72. So if I was literally only saving this for my website, I could leave it at 72 because resolution doesn't really matter when you're uploading to a website, as long as it's at least 72. But I'm gonna go with high because I just love having high quality graphics. And then I'm just going to click on OK. And your files will be saved wherever you had them. So I think that is all I wanted to show you today. Just getting started in Illustrator, getting comfortable with the, a few basic tools that you really need to know. And now I think you're ready to kind of practice on your own. And I'm so excited to see the designs that you guys come up with. So happy designing. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.